The final war began when Earth finally fought back. HFY Sci-Fi Doctor. Alan Wright couldn't believe what he was seeing. The signal patterns on his screen were too perfect, too structured to be random space noise. He had been working late at the Global Space Administration headquarters in Geneva when his monitoring system picked up the anomaly from beyond the Kuiper Belt. "This can't be natural," he whispered to himself. The empty lab around him held its breath as he ran the analysis. Again, same result. The mathematical sequences embedded in the signal repeated with exact precision. He reached for his phone and called Dr. Olivia Chen, his colleague who specialized in signal processing. "Olivia, I need you to come see this right now." I think we just received a message." Within hours, the GSA headquarters buzzed with activity. Government officials and top scientists gathered around Alan's workstation as he explained his discovery. The signal contained prime number sequences, geometric ratios, and eventually, what appeared to be language patterns. "It's a first contact situation," Alan explained to the room of stunned faces. "And they're not just sending a hello, they're coming here." Weeks passed in a blur of activity. The United Nations formed a first contact response team. Military forces worldwide went on high alert. Religious leaders called for calm. The stock markets crashed, then soared as people realized the technological implications. Alan barely slept. He worked day and night with a team of linguists and mathematicians to decode more of the incoming signals. The patterns were becoming clearer. They described massive ships, travel capabilities beyond human understanding, and biological information about the senders. "They call themselves the Vraxian Dominion," Alan explained at a UN Security Council briefing. "And from what we can tell, they control hundreds of star systems." Commander Samantha Price sat at the back of the room, carefully observing. As military, attaché to the UN Secretary General, she had been tasked with assessing potential threats. Something about this situation made her uneasy, but she couldn't put her finger on why. Then the day came. 7 massive ships, each larger than Manhattan Island, appeared just beyond the orbit of Neptune. Earth's primitive detection systems barely registered their arrival until they announced themselves. The UN General Assembly Hall fell silent as the holographic projection of the Vraxian ambassador appeared before them. The alien form was vaguely humanoid, but with grayish skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Its eyes were large, entirely black, and it had no visible mouth. Yet its voice filled the room, translated through the complex algorithm Alan's team had developed. "People of Earth," the voice resonated. "We, the Vraxian Dominion, extend greetings to your developing civilization. We have watched your progress with interest." The alien paused, its large eyes scanning the room. "We offer you protection and guidance. Under our care, your species will flourish. You will gain access to technologies beyond your current understanding. Medical advances that will extend your lifespans. Energy systems that will end your resource conflicts." Secretary General Patel stepped forward. "And what do you ask in return for these generous offerings?" The alien's form shifted slightly. "We ask only that you accept your place in the greater galactic community. As a protectorate species, you would cease independent space exploration beyond your solar system. Resource management would fall under Dominion oversight. Your scientists would contribute to our shared knowledge base." Commander Price frowned. The term sounded reasonable on the surface, but something felt wrong. She wrote a quick note and passed it to the Secretary General. He glanced at it, then addressed the ambassador again. "Would we maintain our own governments, our sovereignty?" "Of course," the ambassador replied smoothly. "Internal affairs remain yours to manage. We simply provide the framework within which you can thrive." After the session ended, Commander Price requested an emergency closed meeting with key security officials. "This isn't a cultural exchange program they're offering," she said firmly. "It's a takeover, benevolent sounding, but a takeover nonetheless." Defense Secretary Garcia nodded in agreement. "The terms effectively make us a vassal state. We give up our independence in space, our control over our own resources, and get what in return? Promises of technology they control? But can we afford to refuse?" asked Foreign Minister Okafor. You've seen the size of their ships. If they wanted to destroy us, they could do it without effort. For 3 days, debates raged in closed sessions. Commander Price argued passionately for caution and limited engagement, but fear won out over prudence. Earth's leaders, overwhelmed by first contact and afraid of alien weaponry, voted to accept the Vraxian terms. The signing ceremony was broadcast worldwide. Secretary General Patel signed the agreement with a steady hand, but Commander Price noticed the tightness around his eyes. He knew this was a gamble with humanity's future. Within weeks, the Vraxians established their presence. An enormous structure appeared in orbit above Earth, a spiraling tower that humans quickly named the Spire. Vraxian representatives took positions in major governments always as advisors rather than leaders. At first, things seemed positive. The Vraxians shared medical technology that cured several forms of cancer. They introduced energy systems that reduced pollution. But Commander Price noticed worrying patterns. The Vraxians began comprehensive surveys of Earth's resources. They seemed particularly interested in rare metals and certain biological samples. Human scientists were required to share all research findings, but Vraxian knowledge came in small, carefully controlled packages. 6 months after first contact, Commander Price met privately with Dr. Alan Wright in a small cafe in Geneva. "Tell me honestly," she said quietly. "What do you think of our new allies?" Alan looked tired, the excitement in his eyes replaced by concern. "They're not sharing nearly as much as they promised. Every time I request information about their propulsion systems or energy tech, they say we're not ready. But they want every detail of our genetic research, especially human DNA mapping." "I've been noticing similar patterns," Price said. "They're taking far more than they're giving." Alan lowered his voice. "Last week I overheard 2 Vraxian scientists talking. They didn't realize I was there. They mentioned something about humans being surprisingly suitable and genetically valuable. Like we're livestock being evaluated." Commander Price felt a chill run down her spine. She had seen colonial patterns before in human history. This felt eerily similar, the powerful arriving with promises, then slowly taking control. "We need to be careful," she said, "and we need to prepare. I don't think they're here to help us." As she left the cafe, Price looked up at the gleaming spire visible even in daylight. Earth had welcomed the Vraxians with open arms. She feared they would regret it. The final war began when Earth finally fought back. HFY. Sci-Fi 3 years had passed since the Vraxians arrived. Earth had changed. The skies over major cities now featured Vraxian shuttlecraft moving between the spire and the surface. Mining. Operations had expanded dramatically across every continent. Vraxian advisors had become fixtures in government offices, corporate boardrooms, and research facilities worldwide. Jack Mercer wiped sweat from his forehead as he inspected the massive mining equipment. Once a Marine, he now worked as an engineer at the Rocky Mountain extraction facility. The operation had tripled in size since the Vraxians took interest in the rare earth elements buried deep in the mountains. "Mercer, come here," called his supervisor, a human named Peterson who worked directly under Vraxian management. Jack walked over, stepping around pools of chemical runoff that hadn't been there last week. The environmental protocols had become increasingly lax. "The Vraxian overseer wants extraction rates increased by 30%, Peterson said, looking nervous. "They're bringing in new equipment tomorrow." 30%? "We're already running at maximum safe capacity," Jack protested. "The groundwater contamination is spreading to the valley. There are towns down there." Peterson lowered his voice. "They don't care about that. Just make it happen." Later that day, Jack was checking pressure gauges when Zaltek, the Vraxian mining supervisor, approached. Jack had never gotten used to their appearance. The gray, shimmering skin, those black eyes that seemed to look through you rather than at you. "Your concerns about extraction rates are noted, Human Mercer," Zaltek said without greeting. The translator device at its neck converted the strange clicking sounds into flat, emotionless English. "The rates aren't safe," Jack said firmly. "We're destroying the ecosystem." Zaltek tilted its head slightly. "Such concerns are irrelevant to the operation." This planet will eventually be fully processed once its usefulness as a living world is exhausted. Environmental preservation serves no purpose. Jack froze. What do you mean, fully processed? Resource. Extraction becomes much more efficient when biological systems no longer need consideration, Zoltek stated, as if explaining something obvious. Now increase the extraction rates as directed. The Vraxian walked away, leaving Jack standing in shock. Fully processed? They plan to strip Earth completely? Across the country in Washington, D.C., Commander Samantha Price sat in a small apartment that served as one of many secret meeting locations. The room contained only basic furniture and communication equipment that had been carefully checked for Vraxian monitoring devices. Report, she said to the 4 people seated around her. Over the past 3 years, she had built a network of trusted individuals who shared her concerns about Earth's so-called protectors. Resource extraction has increased by 57% globally, said a young analyst named Frank. They're taking far more than the agreements originally specified. The technology transfers have slowed to almost nothing, added Elena, who worked in the International Scientific Cooperation Office. What they do share is outdated by their standards, just enough to make us more efficient workers for them. Price nodded grimly. What about the missing persons situation? Dr. Olivia Chen, once part of the first contact team and now one of Price's most valuable allies, pulled out a tablet. It's worse than we thought. Over 20,000 people have disappeared in the last 6 months. The Vraxians claim they're being taken for advanced educational opportunities off-world, but none have returned or communicated with their families. And the governments are just allowing this? Asked Frank. Price's expression hardened. Most government officials are either deceived, bribed with Vraxian technology, or threatened into compliance. The few who resist tend to be quickly replaced. She stood and activated a secure digital map, showing a network of glowing points across the globe. This is what we've built so far, she said. Homeworld defense. 217 cells, operating in 43 countries. People who understand what's really happening and are willing to resist. We're still too small, Elena pointed out. Yes, Price agreed. But we're growing. And now we may have something important. She nodded to Dr. Chen, who took over. I've been analyzing the biological samples the Vraxians have been collecting. They're particularly interested in human genetic material, especially certain rare sequences. I believe they're looking for a cure. A cure for what? Frank asked. From the patterns in their research, I think the Vraxian species is suffering from some kind of degenerative genetic condition. Something in human DNA might hold the key to preventing it. This revelation hung in the air. The room was silent as everyone processed its implications. So they didn't come here to help us, Elena said finally. They came here to use us. Like a biological resource, Price confirmed. And based on their increasing collection efforts, they're getting desperate. Meanwhile, on the Mars colony, Administrator Daniel Harris was reviewing security footage with growing horror. The Vraxian research facility, supposedly built to study Mars's geology, had just received another shipment of equipment from Earth. But the containers being unloaded clearly contained stasis pods with humans inside. Daniel had suspected something was wrong for months. The research facility was too heavily guarded, and Vraxian scientists were secretive about their work. Now he had proof they were conducting experiments on humans. He copied the footage to a secure drive and erased all evidence that he had accessed the security system. As the colony's administrator, he had high-level clearance, but he knew the Vraxians would kill him if they discovered what he had seen. 2 days later, Daniel boarded a supply shuttle bound for Earth, the secure drive hidden in his personal effects. The shuttle lifted off from the Martian surface, carrying its precious cargo of evidence. Back on Earth, Jack Mercer stared at the mountain landscape being systematically destroyed. The beautiful forests and streams he had grown up with were now contaminated wastelands. And according to Zoltek, this was just the beginning. He made his decision. That night, he encrypted a message and sent it through channels he had carefully researched over the past weeks. The message was brief. Mining engineer with inside access to Vraxian operations seeks contact with Homeworld Defense. 3 days. Later, he received a response with instructions to meet a contact. Jack knew he was risking his life, but after what Zoltek had revealed, he had no choice. Earth needed to fight back before it was too late. Commander Price received word of a new recruit, a mining engineer with valuable information. She added his name to her growing list of allies. Each person brought them one step closer to understanding the Vraxians' weaknesses. "We'll need to move soon," she told her core team, "before they take everything they want from us." Outside, visible, through the apartment window, the spire gleamed in the evening sky, a constant reminder of humanity's unwelcome guests. But beneath its shadow, resistance was growing. The final war began when Earth finally fought back. HFY. Sci-Fi 5 years had passed since the Vraxians first arrived. Earth was showing the scars of their presence. Vast areas had been transformed into mining operations, processing facilities, and research centers. The climate had begun to change as Vraxian harvesting disrupted natural systems. Storms grew more violent. Droughts lasted longer. Floods devastated regions that had never experienced them before. Lisa Rodriguez worked in the main Vraxian supply center outside of Houston. Her job was to track shipments of resources leaving Earth and technology coming in. The balance had become increasingly one-sided. Mountains of Earth materials went up to the spire every day. Very little came back down. Lisa had built a secret database tracking everything. She knew more about Vraxian supply chains than perhaps any other human, and she had discovered something important. Late at night, in her small apartment, she examined the energy readings she had secretly recorded from Vraxian ships and weapons. All their technology used the same type of energy, a specific wavelength that seemed to power everything from their smallest tools to their largest vessels. "There has to be a way to disrupt it," she muttered to herself, running another simulation on her hidden computer system. The computer beeped. A result appeared on screen. Lisa's eyes widened. "That's it," she whispered. A calibrated electromagnetic pulse at exactly this frequency would shut down their entire system. She saved her findings to a secure drive. This information was too dangerous to transmit electronically. It would have to be delivered in person to someone she could trust. Meanwhile, Commander Price had established her headquarters in an abandoned military bunker outside of Seattle. Homeworld Defense had grown into a global network with thousands of members. They operated in complete secrecy, using codes and secure channels that the Vraxians couldn't monitor. Daniel Harris, who had escaped from Mars with evidence of human experimentation, now served as Price's second-in-command. He had barely made it to Earth alive. Vraxian security forces had almost caught him, but Homeworld Defense agents helped him disappear. "The Mars colonists are with us," Daniel reported. During a leadership meeting, "They've been secretly modifying mining equipment into weapons. When the time comes, they can hit the Vraxians from space." Price nodded. "Good. We'll need every advantage we can get." Dr. Chen entered the room, looking excited despite her exhaustion. "I've confirmed my theory about Vraxian biology," she announced. "They're extremely sensitive to certain wavelengths of ultraviolet light that humans can tolerate. It disrupts their cellular structure." "Can we use that as a weapon?" Price asked. "Possibly. I'm working on a delivery system that could release the right UV wavelength into areas with heavy Vraxian presence." The strategy planning continued late, into the night. Homeworld Defense had agents in every major Vraxian facility on Earth. They collected information, found weaknesses, and prepared for the day when humanity would fight back. That day came closer when the Vraxians made their next move. Jack Mercer was among the first to hear about it. The mining operation where he worked received new orders directly from Vraxian High Command. "They're accelerating everything," he told his resistance contact during a secret meeting. "All resources are being redirected to build massive ships, and they're constructing what they call processing centers designed to hold millions of humans." The news reached Commander Price within hours. Her intelligence network confirmed it. The Vraxians had announced to Earth's puppet governments that 300 million humans would be relocated to off-world facilities. "They're not even pretending anymore," Daniel said grimly. This is a mass harvesting operation. Price's face hardened. Then we're out of time, we need to move now. She activated the emergency communication system that connected all homeworld defense cells worldwide. All units prepare for Operation Homecoming. Countdown begins now. 72 hours until global action. In Colorado, Jack Mercer received the alert. He gathered his team of miners who had secretly joined the resistance. For months, they had been adjusting mining explosives to work against Vraxian technology based on Lisa Rodriguez's research. When the signal comes, we hit the main processing plant and the communication relay, he told them. We probably won't survive, but we'll give the others their chance. The men and women nodded solemnly. They had all seen their world being slowly destroyed. They were ready to fight back. Lisa Rodriguez was preparing to deliver her research on electromagnetic disruption when Vraxian security forces began searching the facility where she worked. Someone had reported suspicious activity. She hid in a maintenance tunnel as guards searched her office and seized her official computer. They didn't find her secret system or the drive containing her discoveries. But now she was trapped inside, the facility with the most valuable information the Resistance had. In desperation, she contacted her homeworld defense handler. I can't get out with the data, but I can access the main communication hub from here. That wasn't part of the plan, her handler replied. Plans change, Lisa said firmly. If I can disrupt their communications when the attack begins, it will give our forces a better chance. After a moment of silence, the handler agreed. Do what you can. And Lisa, thank you. Lisa began working her way through the facilities, maintenance tunnels toward the communication hub. She had studied the building plans for months. She knew exactly where to go and what to do when she got there. Across the globe, Resistance members made final preparations. In orbit, Mars colonists readied their converted mining ships, now armed with weapons designed to target Vraxian weaknesses. On Earth, millions of ordinary people waited, not yet knowing that their world was about to change forever. In Colorado, Jack Mercer led the first strike. His team attacked the Vraxian processing center before the official order came. It was earlier than planned, but they had no choice. The Vraxians had begun loading humans into transport ships. The battle was fierce and one-sided. Human weapons were primitive compared to Vraxian technology. Jack's team managed to destroy the communication relay and damage the processing center's power system before they were surrounded. As Vraxian security forces closed in, Jack sent one final message to Homeworld Defense. Colorado team engaged. Communications down in Sector 7. Main facility damaged but still operational. Send everyone. The message reached Commander Price at her headquarters. The plan had been compromised. They would have to move immediately. All units deploy now, she ordered. Operation Homecoming is live. As her command went out, Lisa Rodriguez reached the Vraxian communication hub in Houston. Using her security clearance, she gained access to the system. With trembling fingers, she uploaded the program she had designed based on her research. It would create a cascading failure throughout the Vraxian communication network. For Earth, she whispered as she pressed the final key. Across the planet, Vraxian systems began to fail. Their communications went silent. Their coordination collapsed. The carefully planned harvest of humanity fell into chaos. Commander Price watched the reports coming in. The first phase was working. Now came the hard part, actually fighting back against the most powerful species humans had ever encountered. It's time, she told her officers. Earth fights back today. The final war began when Earth finally fought back. HFY. Sci-Fi Commander Price stood in the control room of Homeworld Defense Headquarters, watching as reports flowed in from around the world. Screens showed battles erupting across every continent. Humanity had launched its counterattack and the Vraxians had been caught by surprise. Lisa's communication disruption is holding, reported a technician. Vraxian forces can't coordinate their responses. Price nodded, her face tense. What about Dr. Chen's UV deployment? Units in Asia, Europe, and North America report successful release of the UV compounds. Vraxian forces are retreating from affected areas. For the first time in years, Price allowed herself a small smile. The carefully planned resistance was working better than she had dared to hope. Humanity's greatest strengths had always been adaptability and determination. Now they were using the Vraxians' own technology against them. In low Earth orbit, Daniel Harris led a fleet of converted mining vessels from Mars. The ships were ugly, improvised weapons platforms, but they carried specially designed systems, based on Lisa Rodriguez's research. All ships target the spire, Daniel ordered. Electromagnetic pulse systems at full power. 27 ships moved into position around the massive Vraxian command center orbiting Earth. The spire's defenses activated, firing energy beams that destroyed 3 human vessels immediately. But the others pressed forward, absorbing heavy losses. Fire pulse weapons, Daniel commanded. The remaining ships released concentrated bursts of electromagnetic energy at the exact frequency Lisa had identified. The effect was immediate. The spire's energy systems flickered and failed. Its weapons went silent. Its shields collapsed. Boarding teams deploy now, Daniel ordered. Pods launched from the human ships, carrying fighters trained to combat Vraxians. In close quarters, they breached the spire's outer hull and entered the massive structure, fighting their way toward the command center. Meanwhile, on Earth's surface, the battle raged. In cities across the planet, humans rose up against their oppressors. They used the electromagnetic disruptors built from Lisa's designs and deployed Dr. Chen's UV compounds through modified atmospheric processors. The Vraxians, unused to resistance, from what they considered a lesser species, responded with confusion at first. Then, as they realized the full scale of the human uprising, they reacted with overwhelming force. The Vraxian regional commander, stationed aboard the spire, activated their most powerful weapons system. Energy beams lanced down from orbit, targeting major population centers. San Francisco disappeared in a blinding flash, then Cairo, then Seoul. Millions died in an instant. News of the attacks spread quickly through homeworld defense channels. Price watched in horror as the death toll climbed. "They're trying to terrorize us into submission," Daniel said over the communication link from orbit. His teams were still fighting inside the spire, trying to reach the control systems. "It won't work," Price replied, her voice steady despite her grief. "Humanity has been backed into a corner. We have nowhere to go but forward." She activated the global broadcast system that Homeworld Defense had built over the years. Every functioning communication device on Earth received her transmission. "People of Earth," she began, her face appearing on screens worldwide. "The Vraxians have shown their true nature today. They have destroyed our cities and killed millions of innocent people. But we will not surrender. We did not start this war. We welcomed them with open arms, and they repaid us with slavery and death." Her eyes flashed with determination. "But make no mistake, we will end it. Earth is not their resource to harvest. Humanity is not their experiment to perform. We have been patient. We have been accommodating. Now we will show you what happens when Earth finally fights back." Her message reached even those who had collaborated with the Vraxians. Faced with the destruction of entire cities, former allies turned against the aliens. Government officials released classified information. Security forces joined the resistance. The tide turned as humanity united against the common threat. In Houston, Lisa Rodriguez had barricaded herself in the communication hub. Vraxian forces were trying to break through the reinforced doors to restore their network. She worked frantically, using her access to reprogram Vraxian systems across the planet. "I've gained control of their atmospheric processors," she reported to Homeworld Defense, redirecting them to distribute Dr. Chen's UV compounds. As she finished speaking, the doors began to melt under Vraxian energy weapons. Lisa knew she wouldn't escape, but she had one final task to complete. "Activating global command override," she said, typing furiously, "setting all Vraxian energy systems to overload on my mark." The doors burst open. Vraxian security forces entered, weapons ready. Lisa smiled and pressed the final key. "Mark." Across the planet, Vraxian energy systems began to overload and explode. Their weapons failed. Their vehicles crashed. Their facilities went dark. In space, Daniel's forces had reached the command center of the Spire. They found the Vraxian regional commander preparing to launch another attack on Earth. "This ends now," Daniel said, leading the assault team into the control room. The battle was brief but violent. Human forces, using weapons designed to emit the specific UV wavelengths that Dr. Chen had identified, overwhelmed the Vraxian defenders. Daniel himself confronted the regional commander, a larger Vraxian with elaborate markings on its gray skin. "You cannot win," the commander said through its translator. "The Dominion spans hundreds of worlds. This is merely one outpost." "Then we'll free them all," Daniel replied, firing his UV weapon. As the regional commander fell, Daniel's team took control of the Spire's systems. They shut down the planet-killer weapons and sent a message to all Vraxian forces on Earth: surrender or die. By nightfall, the battle had largely ended. Vraxian forces, cut off from communication and coordination, overwhelmed by unexpected resistance, and vulnerable to human counterattacks, were in full retreat. They abandoned their facilities and fled to their remaining ships. Commander Price received the news at headquarters with grim satisfaction. They had won the first battle, but she knew the war was far from over. "The Vraxians will return," she told her officers. "They need what they think we have. They'll bring reinforcements." "Then we'll be ready," said Dr. Chen, who had joined them after overseeing the UV compound deployment. "We know their weaknesses now, and we have something they don't." "What's that?" asked one of the officers. "Everything to lose," Price answered. "Our home, our freedom, our future, and we've proven today that humans will fight to the death for those things." She looked at the tactical display showing Vraxian ships retreating from Earth orbit. "Begin salvage operations immediately. I want every piece of Vraxian technology studied and replicated. We have to prepare for what comes next." Across Earth, humans emerged from the battle changed. They had faced extinction and fought back. The species that had spent millennia fighting among themselves had finally found a common purpose: survival against an enemy from the stars. The final war began when Earth finally fought back. HFY Sci-Fi. 3 months after Earth's successful uprising, long-range sensors detected a massive Vraxian armada entering the solar system. Just as Commander Price had predicted, the Vraxian Dominion had called in reinforcements from nearby star systems. 53 capital ships and over 200 support vessels, reported the sensor technician at Earth Defense Command, formerly Homeworld Defense. Price studied the tactical display with a calm expression that hid her inner concern. Earth had been busy preparing for this moment, but the approaching force was larger than they had anticipated. "Time to arrival?" she asked. "At current speed, 4 days." Price nodded. "Alert all defense forces. Begin evacuation of civilian populations to the underground shelters. And get me a secure line to Admiral Harris on Mars." In the months since the rebellion, humans had worked tirelessly to adapt Vraxian technology. The Spire had been converted into Earth's primary defense platform. Captured Vraxian ships had been studied and replicated. Earth's militaries had united under a single command structure with Price as the supreme commander. Daniel Harris, now an admiral, appeared on the communication screen. The Mars colony had expanded its shipbuilding capacity, producing vessels that combined human ingenuity with Vraxian technology. "We've seen them," Daniel said without preamble. "It's the largest Vraxian fleet ever recorded." "Can your forces be ready in 4 days?" Price asked. "We're ready now. 27 battle cruisers and 55 support ships. Not enough to match them ship for ship, but our technology has advantages they don't expect." Price nodded. "Deploy to defensive positions. We'll coordinate from the Spire." As the call ended, Dr. Chen entered the command center. In the months since the rebellion, she had made a critical breakthrough in understanding Vraxian biology. "Commander, I need to speak with you," she said urgently. Price followed her to a private room where Chen activated a secure display. I've completed my analysis of the Vraxian genetic structure, Chen explained. The material they were harvesting from humans could actually be synthesized artificially. We could produce the cure they need without harming anyone. Price stared at her. You mean this entire war was unnecessary? They could have just asked for our help? Exactly. Their belief in their superiority prevented them from seeing humans as partners rather than resources. This revelation solidified Price's resolve. The Vraxians hadn't just been cruel, they had been needlessly cruel. Their arrogance had cost millions of lives on both sides. As Earth prepared for the coming battle, Jack Mercer, who had survived the Colorado uprising, led a special operations team on a vital mission. Using a captured Vraxian scout ship equipped with stealth technology, developed by Earth scientists, they approached the Vraxian flagship undetected. Remember, Jack told his team, our only objective is to reach their navigation center and download their star charts. We need the location of the Vraxian homeworld and their major colonies. The team nodded silently. They were the best Earth had to offer. Former Special Forces soldiers from countries that had once been enemies, now united, against a common threat. Their ship docked with the massive Vraxian flagship attaching to a maintenance port. Using breaching tools designed to cut through Vraxian hull materials, they entered the enemy vessel. The battle through the ship's corridors was fierce. The team used weapons that emitted the specific UV wavelengths that affected Vraxian biology, but they still faced overwhelming numbers. We're not going to make it back to the ship, Jack realized as his team fought their way deeper into the flagship, but we can still complete the mission. After hours of fighting, Jack and 2 remaining team members reached the navigation center. As the others held off Vraxian security forces at the entrance, Jack downloaded the complete star charts showing the location of all Vraxian worlds. Data secured, he reported to Earth over their quantum communication link. Transmitting now. The transmission completed just as Vraxian reinforcements breached the navigation center. Jack's last act was to destroy their equipment, ensuring the Vraxians wouldn't know exactly what information had been stolen. Back on Earth, the data from Jack's sacrifice provided a crucial advantage. For the first time, humans knew the full extent of the Vraxian dominion, including the location of their heavily guarded homeworld. As the Vraxian armada approached Earth, Admiral Harris arrived at the Spire with his fleet from Mars. Earth's orbital defense platforms were fully operational, and ground-based weapon systems were ready. All forces in position, reported the tactical officer. Price looked at the assembled human fleet, a mix of converted Vraxian vessels and new ships, built using hybrid technology. They were outnumbered, but they had advantages the Vraxians didn't expect. Open a channel to all Earth forces, she ordered. When the connection was established, she spoke clearly and confidently. This is Commander Price. Today we face the full might of the Vraxian Dominion. They've come to punish us for daring to resist, for refusing to be their resources to harvest, but they've underestimated us again. She paused, looking at the determined faces around her. We know their weaknesses. We've improved their technology. And most importantly, we're fighting for our home. Remember what they did to our cities, our people. Remember what they plan to do to our entire planet. Today we show them that humanity will never surrender. The Vraxian armada entered Earth orbit and immediately opened fire. The battle for Earth's solar system began with a ferocity never before seen in human history. Earth's defense platforms activated, firing electromagnetic pulses that disabled dozens of Vraxian ships in the first exchange. The human fleet, using maneuvers impossible for the larger Vraxian vessels, targeted weak points identified during previous battles. On the Vraxian flagship, the Supreme Commander watched in disbelief as human forces inflicted significant damage on his fleet. How have they advanced so quickly? He demanded of his advisors. They've adapted our technology and improved it, one replied nervously, and they're using our biological weakness against us. The battle raged across the solar system. Mars defense platforms provided additional firepower. Asteroid belt installations launched swarms of automated attack drones. Earth's atmosphere was filled with Dr. Chen's UV compounds, creating a barrier that any Vraxian landing force would struggle to penetrate. After 3 days of continuous fighting, the Vraxian armada began to retreat. Their losses had been too heavy, their advantage of numbers nullified by human ingenuity and determination. Commander Price watched from the spire as the enemy fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, fleeing Earth's solar system. "They'll regroup at their nearest major base," said Admiral Harris, studying the star charts Jack Mercer had obtained. "They'll request reinforcements from their homeworld." Price nodded. "Then we don't give them time to recover." She turned to her officers. "Prepare all functional ships for immediate departure. Upload the Vraxian star charts to all vessels." "You're planning to take the fight to them?" asked Dr. Chen. "The Vraxians came to our home and tried to destroy everything we are," Price said firmly. "Now we take the fight to theirs, not just for vengeance, but to free every species they've enslaved." She looked at the star map showing the vast Vraxian dominion, hundreds of worlds subjugated under their rule. "Humanity will not stop until the dominion falls," she declared. "The final war has begun, and Earth has finally fought back." 3 days later, the unified human fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading toward the heart of Vraxian territory. Among the ships was one named in honor of the fallen hero, the USS Jack Mercer, with Commander Samantha Price at its helm. As Earth faded from view, humanity took its first steps as a united interstellar species. The road ahead would be difficult, but for the first time in human history, all nations fought as one, not just for survival but for the freedom of countless worlds beyond their own.